Okay, I am recording.
Okay, I'm recording too.
Okay. So, welcome back to Raising Hell to Heaven.
To heaven!
I gotta work on that.
This is a podcast where shame comes to die on exposure, and a reminder that redemption is possible for us all, but it starts within.
Amen.
And just before we begin, our disclaimer is that these opinions are our own. We are not professionals, and we are merely here sharing our experience, strength, and hope, and shining a light for those in need.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate, the beautiful Kate.
Okay, so we're kicking off with you today, Chelsea.
Yes. I'm hoping this... Oh, yeah. I was like, I hope this is recording. And then I was loud and saw the little spike. So I'm avoiding because I'm scared of this one. Anyways.
You got this.
Thank you. So we're diving right in because we're here to share our stories. Because how can we teach or give advice or give hope if we aren't shedding light on things that we've personally been through? And I'm here to tell you that no matter what you are going through, you are so strong, you are so resilient, and you are so capable of overcoming it, because I have been in some dark, dark places. So I've been putting off for like 2 years really telling this last part of my story, because last part of the dark part of my story, because from there it just got bright. It just got real light, all God, all good. But because it's hard, because it's really hard, and it takes a lot of vulnerability. But the other day, I were recording, and my friend texts me, and she's like, "Your ex is in the news." And I was like, so this like just happened, right? Sitting here looking at this news article, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, but just talk about being validated, knowing I did the right thing by walking away, right? So that wasn't even the worst of it. So the ex that was in the news, I was in a cycle of abuse for about 4 years. I went from one to another. There were some relationships before then that kind of started giving me a little taste. There were some toxic things in those relationships that I didn't really recognize. And I think looking back, as we start to realize what we tolerate, we start to tolerate more and more and more. So because I tolerated little things, then the bigger things were less noticeable. And so the one that got in the news was actually the one before the big whammy. So I had left him, and that story too. He got arrested for assault or something. I don't even know, but it was bad with a girl, whatever. It was honestly just a sign for the Lord being like, you could have ended up in the news, but you didn't, and now like you're here making a podcast with Kate across the country, having this beautiful life story, beautiful experience. So that's just to encourage you. After that relationship, I had, at the tail end of that relationship actually, he had been pretty abusive with me in a public place. I was at a club. He threw me down in the club, and his friend slid in as this like knight in shining armor, and he was protecting me, and I was like, this guy is great. No, and the moment I was just surviving. I was just like, I don't want to die. But later on, looking back, I was like, I just realized I left. Didn't turn my light on. It's fine. So later on, I had made a very grave mistake. Number one, okay? If anyone wants to, let me rephrase this. Anyone who is the opposite sex, who wants to talk to you about your problems in your relationship, don't do that. That is just a bad, that is, right? It's just a recipe.
One way to slide in there.
You leave an opening.
Yep.
You're leaving an opening, and then they just want you. So I didn't register that though at the time. I was just like, I need someone to talk to who understands this guy, and everyone else will, rightfully so, judge me and be like, you should probably leave him, but I didn't want to hear that, right? So I went to his friend, because I was like, well, his friend understands him. His friend will make me feel better about this decision that I'm continuing to be with this man who's clearly mistreating me. So I talked to him, the knight in shining armor guy, and we had chatted a couple times, whatever. Then finally I break up with abuser number one, and it's weeks or something, and I contact this knight in shining armor, and he is now in a relationship. And looking back, I'm like, this was my first mistake. Well, that was my second. My first was talking to him in the first place. My second big whammy mistake was when I went back and started chatting with him. He had a girlfriend. So the Lord was like, no! He was literally giving me a stop sign, flashing red lights, like, stop. And I was like, no, I will make him mine. Like, I think I literally said to him, I will make you mine. Just a matter of time. And then, of course, I stepped back because I'm not that crazy. And some months later, he messages me, and I thought you had a girlfriend. And he's like, come, let's get dinner, let's talk about it. The rest is history, right? So I start dating this guy, and within 2 weeks, I start noticing some weirdness. I remember specifically one time we're in a room, and he's pacing back and forth, and he's like telling me about all these like girls that cheated on him. And at the time, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. But then I was like, something's off. You know, it just started being like, how many people cheated on you? Did they? And then I got in my brain like this, I don't know if you've experienced this, Kate, but like this need to prove that I was going to be the one that didn't.
Because I think what would tie in here is the savior complex. We have that I'll be different. I'll be the one to fix him and to heal him.
Yeah. But I think it's definitely a red flag, though, him saying, because that's what they do. That's a trait of a certain personality type that will put themselves in the space of the victim to try and get the rescuer. Victim, rescuer.
It's wild, too. It's so, like, they so clearly choose their people because they know. You can tell the type of woman that wants to help, serve, that needs that validation, though. That is too weak in herself to feel like she's good on her own. And I wasn't. I was that woman. I was in that place in my life. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with women are in that place. It's that they don't see how incredible they are within themselves, and they don't need to be needed. And at that point in time, I wasn't there yet. I felt validated when I was needed.
Self-love is a journey. It's a hard road, and you have to kind of make the decision. And it's normally, unfortunately, it's when something like this, what you've been through, happens. It's almost like God is, whatever you guys believe in, but like God is shaking you awake and going, it's time to wake up and love yourself. Let me love you, you know?
That's actually such a good analogy. Come on! Literally, I have so many good things for you, and you're here. Point of the story is that right when every time actually throughout this 2 years of this relationship, God, and I don't know if this happened with you, Kate, God would give me so many outs, so many red flags, and I'd be like, Lord, give me a sign. And he's like, flashing lights, like stop sign, like roadblock. And I'm like, I need a little more of a sign, you know?
No, it's so true. I saw this meme. I actually, sorry to interrupt, but I have to tell you, it was this picture of this guy wearing like a red scarf, and he was like, "Look, I made a scarf out of all the red flags you gave me." And I was like, "That's me, and that's you."
It's literally so real. It's so good. Really though, like that was so that was definitely what I was going through, and I fell so deep in it so fast, and that's why I am so quick now not to be quick with relationships or with dating or starting anything, because anything that is quick to start is usually very quick or aggressive to finish. You know, it's not gonna last long.
Yeah.
This was, it lasted 2 years, but it started really fast, really aggressive, all in. We were saying I love you way too fast. He was talking about forever, like love bombing. We know love bombing.
Yeah.
Now we know love bombing. Yeah. But at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is so Christian. He has so many tattoos. You know what I mean? Like, I just fell in love with this idea in my mind. And I already had this future written out for us. I met his daughters way too soon. which now I'm grateful for because they are my goddaughters to this day. Because I was blessed by having an amazing relationship with his ex-wife, which is very unheard of. She invited us over for Christmas, and I just bonded with this woman, and she saved my life. Like, telling the story, anyways. But reversing, at the time. So I started noticing things. Then I started noticing I was feeling funny. Then I started noticing, oh, you're drugging me. Not going to get into the details of how that all went down, but eventually it was like I was so in fight or flight mode. I was constantly, I was in such a constant state of anxiety. I didn't even notice it. Like, now I notice because I'll feel anxiety every once in a while, and it's like a little rush. It's like it almost feels good because I was so used to it for so long. I had a ringtone on my phone for when he would text me because I had to respond within like 5 to 10 minutes or I was getting it like bad. Yeah, so it was just this constant from the very beginning. I love you. I hate you. I love you. I hate you. And he'd be like, I love you so much. I want to marry you. I want to have kids with you. Calling me by Mrs. his last name, all the things. And then he would just pull himself back, right? He would just disappear from me and then come back and then disappear to make me like feel like I needed it and develop this dependency, right, on his validation for me to feel okay. And there was one point where I remember he was screaming at me, and I couldn't take it. And I was on the bed and I went under the sheets and I started vocally out loud reciting I think it's John 3:16. Yeah, that I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And that's all I could remember, but I was just saying it over and over and over. And the wildest thing happened. I didn't hear his voice. Still to this day, I have no idea what he said. During that time, I couldn't hear anything. It was peaceful there. It was calm. I was protected. It was like I was in this safe little bubble. Is that my alarm?
I'm so sorry. That was mine.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Why
I just
did
didn't
it
know
go
it was
off?
mine because we both have so many alarms. And that's life, guys. You get interrupted by alarms. That is life, though. And that is okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's fine. So we both have at least 15 alarms on our phones for posting times because we're both posting.
Like crazy people, no one understands our lives right now. I don't even think I understand my life now. Half my friends think I'm going crazy. But anyway.
All my friends think I went crazy a long time ago, so.
Maybe you are. Maybe we're the crazy one.
I'm okay with being the crazy one, for sure.
Me too. I'm happy to be.
Yeah. So
yes.
So I just was living this very unhealthy lifestyle and I was just constantly hoping that it would change. Started going to therapy. He had convinced himself like that I was sleeping with 9 million other people. Like he came up with stuff that my brain would never be able to fathom or think that way. Whether it's because he was, he had some sort of learning disorder or a mental health issue or just too much trauma. Who knows what it was, but he do believe to this day he was genuinely convinced. And I think that that's one of the hardest things about being in these abusive relationships. It's almost easier for someone to just be like, I don't like you anymore. And then you're like, okay, I can accept that. I can accept that and then have respect for myself and walk away and find someone who does. Like, it's pretty simple. But when you have someone that is like, I love you. I really genuinely want to spend my life with you, kind of love, deeply, passionately love you, but I am genuinely convinced you're cheating on me. And it's like, okay, I have to prove to them that I'm not. And then you just get on this mission to do anything to do it, but you can't. You cannot convince someone who has convinced themselves of crazy things. It's crazy making, as my therapist calls it. You can't convince them otherwise when they've already, it's too late. They're too deep, like he did with every other girl. And I should have seen that pattern in the beginning when he was like, did I turn my camera on? I think I did, yeah. Okay. My ADHD
How
is
was
something
that?
else. But yeah, like I should have known right from the start. But again, I was young. So by the way, there was like a 16, 17 year age difference here. Like I was like
Wow.
27, he was like 47. Like he knew what he was doing.
Mm,
And he was I was an easy target, right? Like I was so vulnerable, like so not vulnerable, gullible, like I was so easily manipulated. And
yeah.
it hurts me that I don't want to tell women, don't be naive, like don't be innocent, like, because then you're going to get hurt. I think there's such a fine line. And like, correct me if I'm wrong, what you kind of think about this, because this is something I'm still figuring out. Like, how do you remain innocent and yet protect yourself in a world that like will prey on innocence, will prey on gullibility and vulnerability?
I think it's boundaries, and the power of no. And unfortunately, I think I speak for you and I speak for me and so many other women out there. You learn boundaries and you learn no the hard way.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's what it was for me. Because I mean, I'm a total people. Well, I was a total people pleaser.
Yeah.
And I learned through pain. I learned through a lot of mistakes and a lot of pain how to actually have boundaries, and that no is a full sentence, and I'm well within my rights to say no. I don't
Yep.
owe you anything.
Yep. That's good. Yeah, I think that if we are taught boundaries at a very young age, we can remain in our innocence in a lot of ways, without
Mm,
having to be mean and go through things if we are taught no very early on. So I think I mean, that's definitely a
yeah.
huge thing that I will be teaching my daughters, should I have them, and sons
Oh, yeah.
obviously too. But we obviously worry a little bit more, but we should worry about both 100%. But the stats are just wild with women. One of the other pivoting points for me, we were driving on the highway. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was driving and he was in the passenger seat. And what he would do, one of his tactics, is he would just scream at me these really bad things. Like he would just say the worst possible things he could come up with. And he later on admitted it, that he would make up these really bad things to get me to leave, because he wanted to say something that hurt me so bad that I wouldn't come back. And I think it was a mixture of his inability to believe that someone else could actually love him. So if he hurt me, pushed me, pulled himself away, and I still came back, he actually admitted to me one time that this was part of what it was, is that when I came back, it was me proving that I loved him. And it was so hard for him to wrap his brain around that. And then I think the other thing was that he was on some level trying to protect me, trying to get me to go away, because he knew he was never going to get better and that he could never give me what I needed and what I deserved. He was screaming at me as we're driving along the highway, and we are on a very dangerous road. Like we are on the edge of a cliff by the beach, like very far down. You go off, you're not coming back. And he's just screaming and screaming. And one of my coping mechanisms is I just shut down and I'm just silent. When I'm being screamed at, like I will just go blank. And until
Me
you poke
too.
me so much that I pop, yeah, that I'm just. So I'm sitting there driving, hands on the steering wheel, just silent as she is like going and going. And then finally, I just slam on the brakes. And it's amazing. It's a miracle that the car didn't spin out and go off the cliff. Like, I was just so mad. And then I did it once and he was not happy. And then I did it a second time and I felt a backhand to the face. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it finally happened. He finally physically laid hands on me. And I just, again, I didn't even react. I was just like what? It was a moment that was just very much like, you need to reevaluate some things. And I started reanalyzing the whole relationship. Like, what am I doing here? And I looked at the whole thing like a test. Like, he had been doing all these tests, like, you need to do this to be a loyal girlfriend and do this and blah, blah, blah. But I realized that the final test would be leaving him. Once I really respected myself and was at that place with the Lord, with myself, I would not remain in this relationship. And I knew that, but I knew I had to get to that point.
Well, I just wanted to ask you a question, if I may jump in. Just like on that topic, did you find though, because you said finally it happened, and it was, I mean, I have a similar story, but until that had happened, like I wasn't aware of like emotional abuse. I wasn't aware of, I didn't think, verbal abuse was that bad. Like there was this whole like stigma around abuse is when someone physically hits you, and everything else that's happening, that's not abuse. But I think it's also the gaslighting that happens where you question your reality so much that you start to believe that you are this person, you know?
Oh, 100%. I had moments. Oh, I just completely like I believed him. I had to like go back sometimes in my mind and be like, did I do that? When it was like,
Yeah.
definitely didn't. But and he, yeah, my answer is 100%. Like that is exactly what happened to me. Like I don't think I was even aware that like verbal abuse existed. And I have had a therapist, my therapist recently tell me, she said, I don't think you were aware that you were being traumatized when it was going on. Yeah, because you're in fight or flight.
You're in fight or flight and you feel like you deserve it. Like you feel like you deserve it. You feel like you must have done something wrong. And also, yeah, that fight or flight, your cortisol the whole time, your body gets so used to this state of just being tense. Everything is tense. Like, I don't even know if I slept properly for like 10 years. Like, you know?
Not actually, that's a good thing. That's a funny point. The sleeping. So I hated cuddling, and I notice I still kind of do. Like I don't big on physical touch when I feel very safe or when it's with someone that
Yeah.
I'm like wildly attracted to. But for the most part, like don't touch me. Like, every relationship up until that one, I had a really hard time with anyone wanting to cuddle. And with him though, that was how I slept. He would cuddle me so hard, he would hold me, and I actually felt safe. That was the only time I felt safe because he would shut up. Like when I was asleep, it was silent. He was not hurting me. He was not,
Yeah.
screaming at me. He was asleep. I was there. I was safe. It was like the only place I didn't have to be worried about him wondering where I was, right? Because I was there
Yeah.
with him. Like it was the only place I could actually breathe. And so
Yeah.
afterwards, I went into another relationship, my healthiest relationship ever. He just didn't like to cuddle that much. Not that big of a deal. But for me, it was so traumatic because for 2 years, that had been the only place I ever felt safe. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
but it affects absolutely everything.
How long did your relationship last? Your healthy one? Because mine, I messed that one up so bad.
Lasted 2 years. I seem to have a 2-year track record, but it was a really good breakup. We're still really good friends. We just both wanted different things, and so we just decided to break up, and it was super chill. Completely the opposite of everything in my life. But yeah, to wrap this up before my camera decides it wants to stop recording. What finally did it for me, the final kicker, the final red light that the Lord was like, enough is enough, was COVID. So when COVID happened, I moved back in with my parents, and I mean moved back. I was just here all the time, obviously, and wasn't going to be with him because of COVID. And I snuck out one time, and my dad is really high risk because he's like an athlete and lung thing, blah blah blah. So I realized I put my dad's life at risk to see this man. And that was when it finally hit me like, enough. You need to be done. You need to be done. And so I finally stopped seeing him. And once COVID was starting to end, I knew I could feel the impulse to go back, right? And I think that is so important. That's one thing I try to talk to about women is like, you are going to want to go back, and you can't be mad at yourself for that. That is your instinct, is to want to go back. You want to fix it. You, like you said, we feel like we did something wrong. Your instinct is to want to go back. People, the stats on women that go back to their abuser, very, very high, very normal.
Yeah, and it's like up to 5 times. Up to 5 times they go back.
because you want in your brain, you don't want to believe that it's real, that it's actually bad, that it's all those things. So I fled. So I went to Connecticut because I was like, I know he is afraid of planes and I'm not going to be able to reach him if I'm in Connecticut. So I went to Connecticut. I stuck myself in a house. I had no car, no job. It was the best 6 months of my life. I was with my girlfriend who's like a strong Christian, who's my best friend from college. And it was just like reading the Bible in the morning together. And then I would do my vocal lessons during the day. And I would do, yoga and working out and hanging out in the sun. And just, it was just glorious. And I healed in that time. But I also made a very intentional decision to not talk to guys, not date guys, not because I knew I was going to be feeling like I needed to fill a hole inside of me, right? Yeah. And I just poured God into that. I just kept being like, you're good on your own. You do not need, you are good on your own. And that changed my life. It changed. And that is the only reason that I ended up getting into that healthy relationship, because when he came along, he and I could both see that I was in a place where I was like, I don't need you. I've been good for 6 months. I am so happy by myself. So unless you are adding to my life and we are benefiting each other, mutually whole, coming together to do something better with our lives together and help each other, there's no point in having anything less than that in my life. And I think going into that relationship, both believing that about ourselves, both being whole and complete in ourselves, made the relationship a breeze. We never fought once, 2 years.
I mean, I think that's quite amazing though that you took the time that you needed to do the work. Because I think, what I realized, when I got out of um, my marriage, was that I didn't actually take a break. Like, I didn't know who I was without a man. Like, and I didn't know like what a healthy relationship was, because our relationship was so tumultuous, and it was abusive. It really was. Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one for me, because obviously I've got kids, and there's certain things that I don't really want to get into on here, just for them. But for me, I'm now doing the healing. Like the last 5 months, I want to say 4 months. The last 4 months, I've been doing the healing like on my own. And I really, really needed that time.
Yeah. I'm such a huge advocate for it. And I'm 32. I had women, girlfriends, my mom, people that like, just so many people told me like, you need to be alone. You need some time by yourself. You need to be single. And I was like, I have been. Like, I'm not married. I've never been in a relationship more than 2 years. But what I didn't realize is that being alone really means being alone. Like, if you're talking
Yeah,
to one guy
it
or
really
going on,
does.
yeah, you can't be talking to anyone. You can't have going on dates. Like, that's technically single, but that's not really being alone and learning to love time with you. Like, when you have that impulse to text someone and no one's there and it finally stops eating you alive, that's when you're like, you're good. You are good on your own. And that's when you're ready for a relationship, when you don't need one, when you genuinely enjoy being alone and know you have God and you doesn't even, like,
Well, that was my thing. This is what has made me okay with being alone, and I think it ties it back into what this podcast is finding my faith. Like, until I found my faith, I was in the desert of my life. Like, I was wandering in the desert, and I was thirsty. I was hungry and I was thirsty. And like, in my life, I've just wanted to pour it out into someone. I felt incomplete without someone. Like, I needed a man in my life. And since giving my life to Jesus, my cup is full, and I have not known peace like this and love like this. And I'm okay on my own. And it's taken me 37 years. I'm turning 38 this year. It's taken me 37 years to be able to say, I am full. Like, I'm okay alone. And that is because of
you're glowing. You are glowing. Like, you could tell. Like, never for a second would I be like, yeah, Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you just seem so happy. You also, one thing that's wild is you can tell when, I don't think that people are ever necessarily healed or not healed, but like when they're in a good healing place in their life, like you don't even seem like you've been through trauma at all. You seem like you just came out the womb. Like, you know what I mean? Just like a happy go lucky little, yeah. It's so good. You're just glowing and emanating like his love, and it just shows. It shows when someone is like complete in themselves and they're good and they're confident, and getting confidence from Christ, not from the world, not from, things that we've earned or money or status or whatever, but just that lovely, peaceful contentment. And I see that in you. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful thing. I don't know what I was running from all this time. Okay.
That is our first episode about trauma story. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, subscribe and like below and let us know if you have any questions. I know these are tough topics. If you guys have,
Keep sending us questions.
let us know if you've been through anything like this. Please let us know how, or are going through anything like this. Please let us know how we can pray for you. And there will be a trauma line for support below this video. So please feel free to reach out to that. Know that you are not alone. We love you.
Bye now.
I just don't understand why my camera keeps like just stopping.
Yeah, that's